Hey friend, what are you doing here? Alright, so by now you should have a pretty clear understanding that money is devaluated through time and that you need to invest it. Also, you should know that investing in the stock market is not necessarily correlated to picking companies, aka stocks, but rather investing into trackers that will provide you returns over the long-term investment horizon that you may have. Now, just before we get started into this video, I am not a financial advisor. You should always be doing your own research and know that there are risks involved with investing. Don't think that it's because you're investing even on a 10-year investment horizon, you can lose money in the stock market. Just make sure you understand that. So in this video, what I'm going to do is that I'll share with you my 5 favorite tracker to hold for the next 10-20 years. Those are very long-term hold, and you should understand that they have different risks associated to each tracker. Some of them are really volatile, and I don't personally really care because I invest in them for the next 10 or 20 years, at least a decade. That said, I'll pull out my bullish thesis and the why I personally want to be exposed to those trackers. If this video is too long for you, I'm gonna pull out the 5 trackers right now. You can take some notes and get to the end of the video. If not, let's get into it. Alright, so let's kick this off, and the first tracker will give me exposure to the water industry. Basically, as water scarcity and the water stress level increase dramatically over the next decades, the companies treating water will thrive in the future. For us, living in developed countries, scarcity of water seems crazy, but is already very real in numerous places. If we take the example of Lagos, which is the biggest city on the African continent, 21 million people live every day with only access to potable water through plastic bottle, through unbottled water. You have other examples of these cities such as Cape Town in South Africa or Mexico, which nearly reached day zero. Day zero is basically the day where there is not enough potable water for everyone to drink. To not reach day zero, those cities had to put in place and implement really severe restrictions on water usage to make sure the inhabitants had enough water to drink. What I'm trying to say here is we only have 2.5% of the water that is potable and being used for life on Earth. If we have a look at it, in the past 100 years, water per capita has decreased significantly as a result of population growth, while water quality has deteriorated. Today, 785 million people lack a basic water drinking source, and 2 billion people use contaminated water. Worldwide, it has been estimated that we need $670 billion of annual spending until 2030 to meet the sustainable goals associated with water. If we look at it here, water is not just used for human consumption, it's mainly used for agriculture. A kilogram of chocolate needs 17,196 liters of water to be produced. Same thing, meat consumes a lot of water, and even something like butter, a kilogram of butter, you need more than 5,000 liters of water. As our population is expected to grow by 2 billion over the next 40 years, while the global water demand is projected to increase by at least 55% by 2050. Much of the demand is driven by agriculture, which accounts for 70% of global freshwater use, and food production will need to grow by 69% by 2035 to feed the growing population. In a pessimistic scenario, by 2040, places like the US, Australia, Spain, northeast of China, South Africa, the Maghreb, Middle East of course, all those places will be under really heavy water stress. What is the solution to all this? Well, the only one is desalinization. As an example, Israel used to be under really heavy water stress, but produces today up to 80% of its water for domestic use from large coastal desalinization plants. They are also building Sorek B, which is planned to be the world's largest desalinization plant. Desalinization used to be very expensive, but as the cost curve has been highly decreasing over time, it has become the best solution to fight water stress around the world and make water available to every human being. So how do you invest into those companies that make water available for everyone? Well, you have 2 choices. The first one is going to be PIO and the second one is going to be FO. FO. Alright. So the only really big difference between the two is the exposure that you will get. One of them has more international exposure, meaning that they invest into international companies, whereas the other one, FO, is only focused onto US companies. Now, FO has a better overall uptrend and has been up 258% over the last 10 years. I like both of them. Honestly, it's more, are you really exposed to the US? If you are so, then choose PIO. If you're not overexposed to the US economy, well, then you can invest into FO. Also note that FO is a bit less expensive with an expense ratio of 0.6% compared to an expense ratio of 0.75% for PIO. The expense ratio is the amount that you will pay to invest into those companies every year. So if the expense ratio is 0.6%, every year on $1,000 investment, you will pay $6 to be invested into the tracker, which gonna invest into the companies for you. All right, so our second tracker is gonna be one that is emitted by a firm called ARK Invest. So ARK Invest is led by Cathie Wood, which has become such a prominent figure on Wall Street in the last year or year and a half. Cathie Wood only focuses on disrupting innovation. What does that mean? That means she only invests in companies that are really high growth and that are disrupting their industries. Usually it's companies that are in space such as fintech, autonomy, electrification of vehicles, digital health. So all of those companies are really trying to make a change in our society and they are disrupting their industries. Cathie Wood will only invest in a company if she thinks that the stock price will double in the next 5 years. So that gives you an idea of the kind of return that she's looking for. The fund that I personally want to invest in is ARKK, which is the flagship fund with the highest conviction play. You will find companies such as Tesla, Square, Teladoc, Roku, Zillow, which are all high conviction plays. Now, looking at the performances, the performance last year were absolutely incredible with more than 100% return. The performances have been also absolutely incredible since inception. The average return that you would have gotten every single year is around 36%. Now, I'm not sure they can do 36% every year until the end of time, but that gives you a good idea of the kind of return that Cathie Wood produces every single year. The expense ratio is a little bit high at 0.75%, but if there is one person for which I'm ready to pay that kind of price, it's ARK Invest and Cathie Wood. Make sure you understand the kind of risk if you invest into ARKK. I mean, I'm holding it for at least 10 years. It's really volatile, and on a 1-year investment horizon, I don't think it would be a good idea to invest into this, especially after the run they had in 2020. So our third tracker is going to be the iShares Global Clean Energy. And just before I get into the why, just know that this is a very volatile one. Anyway, let's get into it. So first thing first, I believe that when you are a cash investor with an investment horizon of a decade or two, you want to be on the right side of change. You want to invest into companies that will create a better future for you and our overall society. This is what companies creating energy through renewable sources do, and therefore why I really want to be exposed to the renewable energy sector. So now, let's get into the bullish thesis. We know that most developed countries have set carbon neutrality targets, most of them for 2050. In September 2020, China announced that they will try to reach carbon neutrality in 2060. A month later, in October, Japan and South Korea followed. What does that mean? Well, it means that there is a hell of a lot of work to do to get to carbon neutrality, but governments must subsidize and help companies that limit greenhouse gas emissions. In other words, those companies will have a lot of work to do, but will get helped by states and countries. Secondly, let me share some facts uncovered by a research firm called RethinkX. The research proved that an unprecedented disruption is about to happen in the energy business. I personally see it as the same period as when the internet came out. No one really knew where it was going and if it was going to be a big thing. But today, the 5 biggest companies in the world are all data and internet related, and we all use internet on a daily basis. Anyway, so this research proves that the cost of energy produced of solar, wind, and lithium-ion batteries has dramatically decreased over the last decade, and it will keep decreasing over the next 10 years. Basically, these gentlemen are telling us that creating and storing energy through those sources is already cheaper today than through traditional methods such as coal or power plants. If we look at the adoption rate of these technologies, that trend seems to really be following an S-curve of adoption. What does that mean? An S-curve of adoption has a flat bottom where the adoption is really slow, and then there is a tipping point. From this tipping point, the growth becomes exponential. I believe this year and the next few years are this very important tipping point, and that we will adopt those technologies for the next 2 decades to come. Rethink also proved that if the whole world was to produce energy through solar, wind, and batteries, we would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 50% worldwide. Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't it be nice if we were older, then we wouldn't have to wait so...
Back to our tracker here. If we look at the top 10 holdings, which are the companies that I'm investing in when I'm investing into the tracker, well, you see growth companies such as Plug or Enphase Energy. I would personally like to see Enphase Energy at the top of the list. It's a company that I really like. But overall, those are great companies that produce renewable energy. Now, make sure you understand that this is a very volatile tracker and a risky investment short term, but that those companies represent the change that we want to see in the world. The expense ratio is 0.55%, that is, you will pay 0.65% on your overall investment, and the performance in 2020 was 140% return. Obviously, this is not replicable every year, and you can't expect that kind of performance again. Our fourth pick will expose us to the technological sector. More than a full thesis on technology, as I'm sure you're really well aware of how important the technological market is around the world and for us, here are a few facts. Researchers have found that 5 billion people own a mobile phone. 2.65 billion people in the world use social media. The market capitalization, that is the value of the companies in the financial markets of the GAFAM, which are Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, just those 5 companies combined have a bigger market value than all of the companies in the European index of the FTSE 100, the CAC 40, the IBEX 35, and the DAX 30. That means that those 5 companies alone have more value than all of the biggest companies in England, France, Spain, and Germany. Just those 5 companies represent $7.5 trillion. 40% of the world's population has access to internet. Yes, only 40%. What do you think will happen to the revenues of Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Microsoft when 60% of the world population will get access to internet? What about when it's 80% of the population? Yes, that is what I'm thinking too. At the end of the day, we all need technology in our daily life, and technological company will keep expanding and will keep on thriving. Looking at ARKK top 10 holdings, I invest in companies such as Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, Facebook, Alphabet, which is Google, Nvidia, PayPal, Intel. So investing in ARKK signifies that I just invest in the world leading companies likely to keep thriving as time goes on and technology broadens to emerging countries. Some trends are also likely to impact their growth, with artificial intelligence coming in, for example, or the treatment of big data. The way I see it basically is the day that we stop buying mobile phones and using computers to work, well, I'll stop investing in technology. Until then, I'm really happy to be exposed to the sector. All right, and our fifth tracker, last one, is going to be the Vanguard Healthcare ETF. I really want to be exposed to the healthcare industry just because it's considered as a defensive one. That is, think about one industry that is likely to be here in the next, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Well, if you have a very long-term investment horizon, the healthcare industry is perfect for you. Whatever happens, healthcare is still going to be here and will be here forever. I mean, if we reflect on what happened last year and that really bad health crisis that we all have to go through every day, well, we decided as a society that health was the most important thing. And no matter what's going to happen in the world, economical crisis, even war, health is still going to be a big issue. And those companies that are providing us with healthcare are still gonna be there. The second reason is that our population is getting older and older as time goes on. While healthcare and innovation are just getting better, so we get better treatment, the quality of our life as human beings is also better with time, so we live longer. So what's going on here? Well, those companies are just providing us with more healthcare as we get older, which makes us live longer. But we also spend more money as time goes on. If there is one thing that you need to remember here, it's just that you're gonna be spending more money as you get older, and because you are likely to live longer, well, who's gonna get your money? It's those healthcare companies. Looking at the top 10 holdings of this ETF, you will have healthcare companies like Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer that you might recognize that are really good long-term investment, and they've been growing forever at a slow pace, but they've been growing. You need to know that it's really cheap. It's 0.1% expense ratio per year. That is, on a $1,000 investment, you will only pay $1 so that it operates, basically invest into the company's shares, and that's all it will ask for the full year of investing, 0.1%. It's 6.5 times cheaper than the renewable energy tracker, for example. All right, now, I know that was a lot of information and you don't need to understand everything here. Just know which tracker I personally like, and you can make your own choices too. You can choose your sectors, you can choose your industries. I've created an Excel document where you can find all of the best trackers according to their expositions. You can download that document, of course, for free. Everything is free. Take the time to do it, to have a look at what kind of exposition you want to have to build your portfolio. Think about it. This is going to be a week or two of work to set yourself for the rest of your life. I know it's hard and it seems really overwhelming, but hey, I've done it. You can do it too. As always, don't forget to smash that like button, comment down below which tracker are you interested in if you found that video helpful. Believe it or not, there's actually quite a bit of work that goes into this. I really appreciate you spending time with me and watching this. As always, please don't be a... Peace!